On this James the Bike Guy, we're taking a look at the 2021 Giant Contend AR3. This is an entry-level road bike from Giant with all-road intentions, sporting some really neat features for an entry-level rig. So we're going to go into some of the features and designs of this bike. I'll tell you what it competes with and what I really like about it before finally finding out what it weighs. So if this kind of thing is interesting to you, I suggest you stick around and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Beginning to check out this aluminum road bike from Giant, we should talk a bit about what I mean that this has all-road intentions. So the Contend series from Giant is basically their endurance style road bike. And the Contend AR runs tire clearance and a few little tweaks to the bike to make it very good for some light gravel, packed dirt, but also really focused around being a great road bike for some endurance riding. Now, when I talk about that stuff, some things to mention here is you can actually fit 38mm tires in the bike, both in the front and the rear. You can see there's plenty of room. It's going to be set up with disc brakes on the bike, which is going to allow you to have confident stopping in just about any condition. And then they also feature on this entry-level road bike through axles in the front and the rear. So what a through axle is basically a shaft that goes through the wheel and threads in. And we want that on a bike like this because it not only makes the bike stiffer and handle better, but with the disc brakes, it makes it way easier to take the wheel in and out. Now the frame itself is going to be made out of their ALU XX aluminum. So it's going to have smoothed out welds. It is manipulated tubing on this bike, so you're going to have thicker and thinner spots. Tubing shapes are going to change, and that's going to help make sure that it rides pretty well. Speaking of riding, even as you go on some of the more broken up roads, you'll notice the seat post is kind of interesting. So it's hard to get a shot on here, but this is a D-shaped seat post. They call this D-fuse, but basically what that's going to allow for is with the truncated side to the back, it's going to allow that seat post to have a little more flex. Tie that in with a divorced seat stay and top tube junction, you should get some additional compliance in the back. And for that, it's pretty neat, but do keep in mind that means it's going to run a proprietary seat post, as well as this clamp is going to be slightly more challenging to adjust than a traditional setup. Going forward, to keep that comfort going, down to this carbon fiber bladed fork. This fork, you'll notice, is nice and thin. It uses their advanced composite technology, so they call, and that's going to allow for a little bit of additional flex in the front end and vibration absorption. Now, key thing to mention with this is not only the through axle we talked about before, but you'll notice this has fender mounts to it. And that's really neat because a lot of times on carbon forks, you can't run a fender, but because of the all-road intentions, you can. And that brings me to the back of the bike, which has some equally interesting features. You'll notice on the back end, it looks pretty clean, but this can also run racks and fenders too. So you'll notice on the inside of the seat stays, that's where the bolt is, or the boss, to be able to put the stays to the top of the rack, or to put a bridge to run a fender. And I love that because that keeps a nice clean look. And then the other mount is at the dropout in the back of the bike. Now, one of the other neat features about this bike is going to be this curved in portion of the seat tube. Basically, you can see that curved in, and that's allowing for additional tire clearance. So they're able to keep this bike with a nice snug 421mm chainstay length while still being able to run the large 38mm tire. Now, out of the box, this is running a 700 by 32mm tire. These are smooth down the center line with a little bit of tread. They're the Giant SR3 AC tire. And this is going to be a flat resistant, good all-around tire, although you could run the larger 38s or go down to say as small as a 32 pretty comfortably on this. Along with that, you've got the Giant SR2 disc wheel set. This wheel set is tubeless compatible, and I really love that feature on an entry-level road bike as well. It doesn't come with tubeless ready tires, mostly because those are pretty expensive and something you might upgrade to later on. The wheels are tubeless ready, And that's the largest chunk of cost whenever upgrading an older bike to tubeless, and Giant is giving that to you out of the box. Bringing you into the drivetrain, we've got the tried and true Shimano Sora drivetrain. This Sora drivetrain is going to run through an 11 to 34 tooth cassette, and that's a pretty wide range on the back end. And moving forward, you've got the Sora crankset with a 50-34 setup. That's a traditional compact setup. To control that drivetrain, of course, you have the Sora STI shifters. These shifters are pretty neat because they operate both the brakes as well as the shifting mechanism of the bike. And you can do that in the top of the hoods here, as well as down in the drops. So inside button on the rear brings you to harder gear. The whole lever over brings you to an easier gear. And then of course you can stop as well. To slow the bike down from those STI levers, you're gonna have mechanical Tektro disc brakes. These disc brakes are pretty neat because this is a twin-sided caliper where when the brake grabs, it's actually going to grab onto the caliper on both sides. In most cases, mechanical disc brakes clamp on one side and bend the rotor over, but instead this setup is going to be a bit better and a lot more control than that as well. The remainder of the cockpit here is going to be all aluminum with Giant's own bar and stem. And coming back, you've got the Giant approach saddle on that D-Fuse seat post. So now that we've taken a look at all the features and designs of this bike, it's about time we find out exactly what it weighs. The actual weight of the Giant Contend AR3 is going to come in at 22.58 pounds. Well, thanks for checking out this 2021 Giant Contend AR with me. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. While you're at it, be sure to let me know, how does this compare to some of the other bikes that are out there? And definitely leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. That way you can see more videos like this in the future.